Hello my friends, and welcome to this next video in this series where we shall be manipulating arrays using the map and the filter function. So in previous video, we've already seen what an array is and how to manipulate the array. So we looked at some of the built-in functions like index of, splice, pop, unshift, shift, and so on. So in this video, let's look at the map function. In order to understand the map function, I'm going to start out by declaring an array. So I'm going to say let numbers, or nums for short, equals an array like this. And so instead of this array, I want to store some numbers. So let me store some random numbers. So I'm going to say 2, 3, 4, 2, 5, and let me say 3 like this. What I want to do is try to manipulate the content of this array and return a new array. In order to achieve that, I could simply use a loop. For example, use the for loop to go through this array and do something to each of the items in this array. So let's say for each of the items that I find in this array, I want to add 2 to the item and return a new array. So that means the array that I'm going to return will have 4, 5, 6, 4, 7, and 5. That is, I just want to add 2 to each of the items. So one way I can do it is using the for loop. So I can say something like 4 and then open my parentheses, and then of course the curly braces like this. I can declare a variable, so I can say let I equals 0, and then I'm going to say as long as I is less than nums dot length, like so, and then I'm going to say I plus plus. So what I want to do is look at the items, each of the items inside of this array, and add 2 to each of the numbers. So, and I want to return a new array. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, create a totally new array. So I'm going to say new num like this equals this array, and this is an empty array right here. So inside of the for loop, I am now going to take each of the numbers or the items instead of the nums right here, add 2 to it, and store it back inside of the new num array that I created right here. So in order to do that, I can say new num like this, and then I can say dot push. Remember in the previous video, we looked at the push function. So this is a great opportunity to see how we can use the push function to do something great, right? So I'm going to say push. And remember, the push function pushes something to the end of the array. This is an empty array. First of all, it's going to push the first item at an index 0 and the next one at an index 1, and so on and so forth till we fill up the new num array. So now I'm going to say item.push, and what do I want to push? Each time I iterate over the nums array right here, I want to say nums I, which is the item inside of this nums array. So nums I plus 2. This I right here at the first time or the first iteration is 0, right? So non-0 is nothing else but 2. So I'm now saying 2 plus 2, which is 4, right? And so this evaluates to 4, and 4 gets stored inside of this new num as the first item in the new num array. And then the second time this for loop runs, that is on the second iteration, I is now 1, right? And nums 1 is nothing else but 3, because 3 is at the 1 or the first index. That is 3 plus 2. And this will be repeated as long as I is less than nums.length. And then it's going to go through all of this array and add 2 to each of the numbers, and at each iteration store those numbers inside of the new num array. So that's what we're going to do here. And at the end of the day, I'm going to console.log the new num array like this. So let me save this and let's see what we have inside of our browser. What I'm going to do actually is to pull my VS Code and my browser side by side so we can see everything at once. So right here is my browser. And so you can see that we logged the new num to the console. And what is new num? What is the value of new num? New num is now 4, 5, 6, 4, 7, 5. And if you check it, you see that it's nothing else but adding 2 to each of the numbers in the nums array right here. So that's one way that we can do this using a for loop like this. Now let's see how we can do this simply by using the map function. So if we were to use a map function instead of doing this long thing here, it would be very, very easy. So what I'm going to do to demonstrate that is, first of all, take all of this out, and then I'm just simply going to say nums dot map, and then for this map I'm going to provide a function, and that function will loop through this nums array right here and return a totally new array having the effect or the changes that we've made to this original array right here. So the takeaway thing is that the map function returns a new array. Each time you call the map function, it returns an array. All right. So I'm going to provide a function here, and of course the function I'm going to provide here is the fat arrow function, or the arrow function if you like. So I'm going to provide the parenthesis and then the equal sign and then the arrow, right? And then I'll call it braces like this. So what do I want to do inside of this function? Now I can take a parameter right here, because remember this is a fat arrow function right here, and functions take parameters, right? So I'm going to provide a parameter, let me say num, and this num is going to represent each of the items inside of this nums array right here. So each of the items, meaning 2, 3, 4, 2, 5, 3, like that. And the map function iterates over the contents of this nums array and do something that you want it to do. So what do I want to do? Whatever I want to do will be written inside of this function body here, instead of the fat arrow function body. So I just want to say num plus 2, just like that. So I want to return num plus 2. So here I'm going to say return. So return num plus 2, just like this. Look at how easy it is. Look at just a few lines of code that we've written. All right. So, and remember I said that the map function returns a new array. So what I'm going to do is come right here and then declare a variable of new nums, and then store this inside of new nums. And so if we try to access new nums array, we'll get a new array with new values. So let me save this and go back to our browser's console, and let me log this new nums to the console. New nums. Now you can see we're having the same thing, 4, 5, 6, 4, 7, 5. But we have done this using a less cumbersome code. So the next thing I want to show us right now is how the filter function works. So for the filter function, I'm going to delete all of this, and then I'm going to say nums.filter. The filter function also returns an array, but it returns the array based on whether something is true or false. All right. So for example, I want to check this nums array, the content of the nums array, and checks if any of the numbers inside of the nums array is equals to 3. If a number is equals to 3, it takes that number and puts inside of the new array that we're going to be returning from the filter function. And if that number is not equal to 3, that is, if any of the numbers inside of the nums array is not equal to 3, it leaves out that particular number. So if any number right here inside of this nums is not equal to 3, then we want to have it removed from the new array that we're going to return right here. So at the end of the day, we're going to have just 3 and 3 return here. So 2, 4, 2, and 5 will be removed from the new array that will be returned right here. All right. Now, I want to do this with the filter function. I could do this using the for loop, just like we did initially. And in fact, let me try to do that. So I'm going to declare another new nums array like this. Then I'm going to look through this nums array right here using the for loop, and then return some set of values inside of this new nums array right here. So I'm going to say for, and then open this. So I'm going to use a for loop, declare a variable let I equals 0, and then as long as I is less than nums.length and then I'm going to say I++. All right. So I'm going to check the stuff inside of this nums. All right. So I'm going to say if nums I, which is the item inside of the nums array. At the first iteration of this for loop is going to check 2 first of all. So this is capturing 2 right here. Is nums I, which should be 2, if it's at the first iteration, is equals to 3. So if this evaluates to true, that is, if the number we're checking at that point in the iteration is equal to 3, then what we want to do, we want to simply say new nums dot push, and of course we have to declare this new nums here using the let keyword. New nums dot push. Then what do I want to push? I want to say push nums and then I, like this. So I want to check if that number is 3. If it's 3, then put it inside of the new array. At the first iteration, 2 will be checked. So 2 equals to 3. That is false, right? So this does not even run. On the next iteration, nums I will be 1, right? So what is nums 1? Nums 1 is 3. So it checks, is 3 equals 3? That's true, right? So since it's true, this code runs. And so new nums dot push 3. So 3 will be pushed inside of this array. So that's how it's going to run until it finishes looping through this array. Okay, so I'm going to save, and now we see that this new nums array right here, we just have 3 and 3 inside of it. So I've saved. Now let's go to our browser to view that, and I'm going to refresh. Okay, we don't have anything here because we've not logged new nums to the console. So, but I can even access new nums from here like this. So you can see that new nums is just 3, 3, just having 2 items right here. So this is one way to do it, and you can see all the codes that we've written right here just to be able to loop through an array and do something inside of that array. So in order to make it simpler, what I can do is to use the filter function. So I'm going to delete all of this, and then I'm just going to say nums dot filter like this. All right, so instead of this filter function, I'm going to provide an arrow function, a fat arrow function. Then what we want to do is to check if the item inside of the nums array right here is equal to 3. So if it's equal to 3, then it will be returned in that new array. And remember, the filter function also returns an array, right? A new array. So, and what do we write here? Let's provide a parameter right here to represent the items instead of the nums array right here. So I'm going to say num. Okay, so for each of the num, so this num right here is representing the numbers inside of this nums array. So I'm going to say nums equals 3. So remember I said that the filter function will return a new array based on whether something is true or false. So what that means is that it's going to check num. This should be num, right? Here it's going to check if that number is equal to 3. So in the first instance, or in the first iteration, it's going to check is 2 equals 3. 2 is not equals 3, right? So that returns false. So it means that this 2 will not be returned. On the second iteration, num is now 3, right? So is 3 equals 3? 3 is equals 3. That is true. So 3 will be returned. On the next iteration, num is now 4, right? So is 4 equals 3? That is false. So because of that, 4 will not be returned. So that's how it's going to look through the content of the nums array and return an item based on whether the text we've given here is true or false. So if it's true, it returns that item. If it's false, it doesn't return the item. So as soon as we save, I'm going to save my file, and then I minimize my VS Code window one more time. We have to store this in a new variable. So I'm going to say let new number equals what we have here, right? Let me maximize this one more time. So let new number is equals what we have right here. So let me save again and preview on our browser's console. So let me try to access new number. Oh, we're having an empty array. Why is that so? Now let's go back to our VS Code to check that out. So nums.filter, and we want to say if num is equals 3, and you should return that number, but we did not use the return keyword. So I'm going to say return num equals 3. All right, so as soon as I save and go back, now this time I'm going to refresh and then try to access new number. So now when I access new number, you see that we're having 3,3 as a return value right here. So then, my friends, that's how the map function and the filter function works in JavaScript. They just make our life easier. So you see we're writing less code. Now, let me give you something to do. It is solve a code time. So I'm going to write a set of instruction for you to follow through to solve this code. So you can pause the video and try on this code challenge. So what I want you to do is to declare an array called numbers like this right here. And then we'll look through this numbers array and return the square of each number, and we'll store it in a new array. So our final result is supposed to be something like new arrays equals 4, 9, 16, like this. Okay, so pause this video right now and try on this challenge. All right, in order to solve this, I'm going to first of all delete all of this, and then I'm going to declare an array called numbers and make it to be 2, 3, and 4. And then on the next line, I'm going to say numbers.map, calling the map function. And then of course, I'm going to provide the start arrow notation right here. And then what do I want to do? So I want to loop through the numbers array and then get the square of each of the numbers. And of course, this map function returns a new array, right? So first of all, let me get each of the item in these numbers using this parameter right here. So I'm just gonna say num, like this. So what I want to do with num, for each of the numbers, I want to say num multiplied by num. So of course, num multiplied by num will give us the square of num, right? So that's what I'm going to return. So I'm going to use the return keyword like this. So when this code runs, we're going to have 4, 9, 16. But then we need to declare a variable and store this right inside of a variable. Okay, so I'm going to say let new array equals numbers.map and all of this right here. So, and in fact, I'm going to log the new array to the console. So console.log and then new array right here. So let me save and then go back to our console to see what we have. So right here on our console, you can see we have 4, 9, and 16 printed right here. I hope you really tried your best to solve this code challenge, and it's going to give you some boost in understanding how array works and how you can use some of this function, the inbuilt function that comes with JavaScript, used for manipulating arrays such as index of, splice, pop, shift, map, filter, and so on and so forth. We've discussed a lot of things, the functions, we've talked about arrays, we've talked about strings, numbers, and how to do some manipulations with them, all right? In the next video, we're going to be looking at objects. Please, my friends, like my videos and subscribe to my channel. It will go a long way in helping me to create videos like this.